Welcome to No One Tells You This. I'm Laura Massetti. Most people wait until they're stuck to go looking for a mentor. Nobody tells you that people who want to mentor you cannot find you right now. And by the time you realize you need the relationship, the easiest moment to build that has already passed. My guest today has spent her career studying what mentorship actually is, why it almost never looks like the way that people think it does, and what it can build when it works the way that it should. Dr. Deb Heiser is an applied development psychologist, TEDx speaker, Thinkers 50 honoree, founder of the Mentor Project, and the author of The Mentorship Edge. Deb, welcome. I am so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
This is going to be so fun because we were talking about something that's near and dear to my heart. And I think for a lot of people that want to give back and share in their career. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, that would be amazing, and share a little bit on your background, your story, all of that good stuff.
Sure. So I'm an applied developmental psychologist, and that came about in a roundabout way. I didn't know what a psychologist was when I was like 20. And I was very close with my grandmother, and she became depressed. And I didn't know what that was. She was like this fun lady who, when I went to visit her one time, wasn't. And I asked someone, what's wrong with grandma? And they said she's depressed, but it's only because she's taking a medication that was for some illness that she had. She'll be better the next time you see her. She was. And I wanted to be a grandma fixer after that. So I've had since the 1990s a passion for working with midlife and aging. And the way that intersects with mentoring is I look at it from the mentor's perspective. The person who is doing the mentoring, the expert, the person who's lived a significant part of their life, and what is it that they get out of it. So that was why I founded the Mentor Project along with several other people, and why I have a passion about talking about that subject.
That's amazing. And I love that you started off with talking about depression. Maybe not love it, but I resonate with that topic because it's one of those things that it's so difficult to talk about, but it's a natural progression often in different stages of your life. So, share a little bit more on the background there and, your
Of
work around
course.
that.
So I started my career studying depression because of my grandma. So I went and I said, that's it. I don't want any grandma to suffer from depression. And what I found is we should not expect to get depressed. We should expect most people don't. But when people do, it's so noticeable and obvious. And the thing that is so important is that depression doesn't always look like depression. So my very first job while I was in graduate school was working in a 705-bed nursing home doing my externship. And when I was there, I went in and I said, everybody kind of looks depressed here. And it was a great place. Like, the place was good. It wasn't like a place where they were just housing people. And the people that worked there said, no one's depressed here. We assess for that. The government has like this assessment that we use, and everyone gets assessed every quarter. And I was like, oh, all right, well, you're the expert, not me. So I kept asking every couple of weeks, are you sure? And then finally I said, can I use a depression screener, and just see what it looks like? So I did it not just on a couple, I did it on everyone that was able to do it. So I had more than 700 assessments done. And I said to them, it's screening for 44 people. And they said, what? And then I ended up getting a job there because they said, oh no, we need to, figure out what this is. So it turns out I did my dissertation there and found out that depression, it's something that really needs to be looked at, because the symptoms when you get older oftentimes are things like headache, backache, symptoms that a person would go to the doctor for. So once we were able to get everyone diagnosed and assessed, it was much lower than 44%, but it ended up changing how the United States assesses for depression. So it's so important to know through the lifespan what depression looks like, because you shouldn't expect it. But if you have certain symptoms, in less than a minute, you can get assessed with a screener to see if you actually might have depression.
That's amazing. And it's crazy to me that a nursing home whose really job it is to take care of people, wash out for people, are just relying on a government protocol in order to make that assessment. I remember years ago, I worked in healthcare technology and we were doing studies around loneliness, which I think is a component of a
Yep.
lot of this, how that's linked to mortality in the aging population.
Hmm.
It is astonishing, astonishing. And it's very different here because now I'm living in Italy and they have a different way of taking care of the elderly here. So you'll find that it's very intimate setting. They do not have nursing homes here. I'm sure that everyone has different opinions on them, but for example, my partner, his grandmother lives above the company that they work at. So able to see every
That's
day
so
and
nice.
yeah, so it's really great, but yeah, that's not the blessing that everyone has, right? And I think that you need tools to be able to navigate through that. So, tell me a little bit more on with those populations, like how do they find purpose and value? Because I think that's a lot of what you work on, right?
Yeah. And it does intersect with loneliness. If you look at all of this, it's all interconnected. So, really, people get disconnected oftentimes, and you can either get back on track or you're at risk for being disconnected and lonely. So, the way that often happens is a person feels purpose, and people who are told, go find purpose, that's really difficult to deal with because what are you talking about? And it feels like it has to be something grand. But purpose can be that you have a hobby or a craft that you do. You play, mahjong or pickleball in the park with people. You connect the person at the pharmacy. It's that you are connected in some way with people. So purpose for most people means to them that you are doing something that you've always enjoyed, and it has something that makes you feel like you're leaving a footprint, that you're making your footprint a little bit deeper. So if you're connecting with people in your neighborhood, it's the people who shovel your driveway. I live in New York, and in the wintertime, I have a neighbor who shovels my driveway. I don't ask him to do it, he just does it. These are the kinds of things that gives him purpose. A person might not think of that as worthy of labeling as purpose, but he's like the king of our neighborhood. So, everybody looks to him for help and support and all kinds of things. So, getting a sense of purpose for whatever it is that you enjoy will likely lead you to connecting with others, because most of our purpose is not something that has us sitting alone in a house. So that is something that if we can engage in that as early as possible and always having that as something that we strive for, it lasts throughout our lifespan. And then we don't have to worry about having social prescribing as part of our medical visit where we're prescribed connecting with others.
Yeah, that's so interesting because this is a natural progression of life, right? These are things that no matter who you are, they will happen to you in some capacity, that nothing in life is stagnant. It will require change. And it's all about how you react to that change. And some of it will be harder than others. And, even when you are a parent and your children leave the house, or it's things like, you had a career for your whole life and then suddenly you don't, and you're not a golfer and you don't want to play mahjong all the time. Like, where do you begin?
You're so right. There is a progression with this. When we're young, we are given purpose. We don't usually pick our purpose. Like it's go get a degree, get a partner, get a house, get a this. We have a list of things that we say, this is my purpose. Once we hit midlife, we're like, uh-oh, I have to find my own now. This is now when it's up to me to pick my purpose. And that can be tricky for people who've always had those boxes to check. Now you make your own boxes. So at this point, I always tell people while you're in your career and you are feeling like you're doing what you should be doing, you should be saying, who am I outside of my job? What do I like to do? Because most people don't say, my goal is to go do mahjong or play golf, right? Their goal is that they want to do something productive that makes them feel important, that makes them feel useful, helpful. So what is that? Maybe it's that you really enjoy art. Maybe you have some kind of passion and you can turn that into what your identity card would be, which could be title of whatever your job is, accountant, teacher, plumber, whatever it is. That shifts when you retire and you can be whoever you want to be at that point. But what is that going to be? And it could be 7 things. It could be that you are an artist, that you also are a gardener, that you are a community advocate, that you're someone who's very involved in your faith-based institution, whatever that that is, you can add to that. And that's what makes it so that people can make that transition very easily.
Yeah, that's amazing advice and perspective. And I also understand the struggle of not being able to do that as well, right? Because, like, there's also this thing of like when you do something, you're fully in it, right? Like, be fully obsessed with your family at the time, the relationship that you're in. And oftentimes we don't think about like what happens when that crumbles, if that crumbles. Like, do you have the other items in place for you to have a happy and fulfilling life?
You put that so well because I'm making this sound like it's easy, like, go just do this, right? But my career has also been helping people to get through those transitions. Think of any transition there is. People say, oh, I look forward to getting married. And then there's the bridezilla that comes out. People are excited to have a child and then the baby's born. And it's overwhelming. There's newness, new jobs. Everyone needs to like go home and take a nap after their first day because they're so exhausted mentally from a new job, even though it's the things that we want. So retirement is often what we want, but it comes with that change that always has that feeling of like, it's new. I'm out of my comfort zone. So it's not as easy as I'm making it sound, like just go get your purpose. There are people who can help you through that, A. And B, it's not going to be a walk in the park. It's not going to be super simple that you retire and you say, well, now I have everything set. I'm good. Just remember back to any new transition you've ever had, even like the first day of school, the first day of college, the first day of starting a new job, whatever it is, it's not easy. So this isn't going to be super easy, but if you know that you have support there, that's what's going to make it easier. So if you go to retire and you have a group of people that you can talk to, or that you're already meeting with, that you're already doing things with, that helps you to just slide in.
So, Deb, I want to circle back to our conversation that we talked about depression and also anxiety because they go hand in hand together in a lot of cases. But where do you start for someone that doesn't understand if that is a condition that pertains to them? How do they go about that process of understanding where they fall on that scale, if at all?
I'm so glad you asked that because it's really hard for us to tell ourselves if we are feeling depression or anxiety in any way. We can just feel uneasy, right? So the best way to do it, especially if you're transitioning, you're getting a new job, you're in a new place, you're getting a new position, starting college, whatever you're doing, they're screeners. They take less than 2 minutes. So you can go to, say, Mental Map, which is mentalmapwith2ps.com, and take a free screener for depression and anxiety. And it'll give you a printout of whether, and you can take it in your own language of choice. And you can take this, it'll give you a printout that shows where on the continuum you fall. And if you happen to fall within a range that is one where you should see someone, there's a button you can click to get a provider in your zip code who accepts your insurance and speaks your language. So it takes less than 5 minutes for everything, and then you can know.
That's amazing because I think the second part of that question is oftentimes a lot harder than the first because
Yeah.
you feel like something's wrong. You identified that this doesn't feel right. I feel out of my skin. Something's off, right? But then the what to do about it, there's often a lag, right? I'll
Yeah.
speak for myself. I've identified that I've had a problem with something. There is a lag by the time you make action.
Yeah.
So tell me about how you make that easier for people.
I feel that all the time. And the reason we thought it was so important is because if you're depressed or anxious, or even it doesn't even matter if you're not, like I got a prescription to go see a physical therapist. I haven't made it because I have to then look for a physical therapist. I have to then determine if that's the one I want. It's overwhelming. And so we're all like that. So I wanted to take that sting out. So you press the find a provider list that takes your insurance and you don't have to dig through people that take your insurance. It's something that's fast. And I wanted to take all that sting away because if you're anxious, you're overwhelmed. If you're depressed, you're withdrawn. You don't want to do these things. You don't even want to do it if you're not. So it's super easy. You press the button and then all the people that are appropriate for you pop up. And then you can look at the pictures if you want and say, oh, that one resonates with me. And I'm not just choosing people that sign up for this. These are people who are nationally and internationally known individuals. So that are already with government or, say, Psychology Today, already on registers.
Right, right. How amazing. That is such a critical resource. And I want to make sure that that's also included in the show notes as well. And that's something that's able to be offered digitally and in person.
Yeah, so if you wanted to see someone online, you can find the people that do it online. You can find the people that you can meet with in person. They put that in there, or you can have that conversation. But the first one that most people want is, who takes my insurance? And
Yeah.
that's a big one. So, and if you don't have insurance, where can you get it for free? Because they do offer it free. There are lots of clinics and places that offer it for free too.
Yeah. It is a hard jump for a lot of people because, notoriously over the past several years, it's mostly people looked at it as it's always an out of pocket
Right.
payment situation. And that impacts access for many people as well. So it's great that this exists. And Deb, I love talking to you because we speak on both different perspectives of things. So my world is on the early professionals and how to help them be equipped for this massive transition of going from university, high school, whatever it may be, into the workforce, which you've been there. It's huge. It's
Yeah.
massive. Your life flips upside down. And there are certain tools and capabilities that you don't have access to immediately and you have to learn how to build, right? But the piece is that support. And that's something that I think is a complete game changer as far as if you're successful during that transition or not. So I think that's where we really meet in the middle and why I resonate so much with your mentorship point of view. So I want to talk a little bit about that piece now because that is really fundamental in my belief of how early professionals get ready for
Yeah.
this phase of their career. So help me understand the other side of that from your constituents.
Sure. And I do want to reiterate, everything I said is exactly the same no matter what lifespan segment you're in. Starting a new job is the same as retiring. It's the same set of feelings. It's the same situation. So here's the thing. You are going in hoping to be a mentee. You are going in and you should be saying, I need mentors. And not one, but a million. Because connection and community is what we need. So most people think, I need to get a mentor, and that one person is going to solve all your problems. They're going to get you into work. They're going to move you ahead, and everybody gets disappointed because there's no one person that can do that. So I tell people, look to your left and look to your right. Right? Look to the people that you're starting with. They're not in your department. You can be vulnerable with them. You can say, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. What did I get myself into here? All the things that, you could never say to your mentor because that's above you that you might feel vulnerable, a little bit more vulnerable with. So you should be looking to someone above you and somebody laterally and more than one. So the reason you want to look at somebody who's above you, and when I say this like hierarchical, is that that person wants to mentor. We're built to want to give back. And that's because once a person reaches midlife or older, they have already gotten their expertise. And it feels to people who have that it is, you don't get to see how that expertise has served you in any way. When you're holding on to it, you feel useless. You feel like you're not helpful, like you're not relevant. And people need to feel relevant in the workplace. They need to feel like they're bringing up the next generation of workers. So when you approach somebody and say, hey, can I pick your brain? Can you give me the lay of the land? I'm new here and I see what you're doing. It really is amazing how you've navigated your way through here. Can I pick your brain for 5 minutes? That's like an entry point to get someone to be a mentor. And you should do this with 5 people. So when you do that, the person is like, and they feel amazing. And it often leads to a connection that has meaning to it as opposed to, hey, will you mentor me? It takes away all the edge of awkwardness when you're just saying, can I pick your brain for 5 minutes?
So I love that informal mentoring. And that's so important. That's something that you can do if you're not in an organization, if you're not in a school, like that's something that comes from within. I want to talk to you about what makes a good mentor program, because I know that a lot of companies and different organizations have them. So what do you think is part of that?
Formal mentoring programs are often terrible, and that's because it's not true mentoring. So a mentor that's assigned to someone, it's like an arranged marriage. It could work, but it might not. Like, hey, it could go either way. So if you are in a company and they have like mentorship that is sort of a requirement, or here's our list of mentors, go get yourself a mentor, or I'm going to assign you one. A lot of places assign a mentor. That's not actually mentorship. That's advising. It's a different role. So I wouldn't approach that as I would approach standard mentorship, because in true mentorship, it really requires 5 things. A person has to want to give their expertise to somebody, and somebody has to want what's being given. If I gave you a house plant that you didn't want, it's not a gift, right? You have to actually want what's being given. It has to be a two-way street. It also has to be intrinsically motivated. If I'm getting paid to mentor, I'm not a mentor. I'm an advisor, I'm a sponsor, I'm something else, just not a mentor. You also have to trust that person. So if I feel like if I open up to you and I say, hey, Laura, I don't know what I'm doing, and you say, ooh, I thought she did, I'm not going to give her a promotion, or I'm not going to speak well about her. That's going to affect how we interact. You also have to be meaningfully connected. You have to like me and I have to like you. So many people have said to me, I have a toxic mentor. That's not a mentor. There's no such thing as a toxic mentor.
Yeah.
And you also have to have a goal. So when you go out and you're looking for this and they have a mentoring program at your place, look to see if this exists. Go ahead and join it if it doesn't, but find your organic ones in addition. Always be on the hunt for somebody that you like to be around, that you can open up with and you can say, hey, how would you navigate this situation?
Yeah. And it's amazing how many people are willing to do that and love to do it. Like, we all started from somewhere, and there was someone along the way that gave us some perspective or some support. And it's this endless cycle. You want to pay it forward for sure. And I agree so much. And I had mentioned this to you before, but I'll quickly just tell this story. In business school, I was part of this, what they had said, a very competitive mentorship program. So I had to apply, I had to get interviewed, the whole thing. So I showed up like this was the ultimate opportunity for me, that this mentor was going to open up every facet of the world for me. We got matched. And just when you just don't
Yeah.
jive with someone,
Mm-hmm.
that was us. And she made it very known, and I wish her all well, but she made it very known that she was someone, right? And I remember I went to grad school in Kips Bay in Manhattan area. And she would say, okay, well, I have 15 minutes. And she was in downtown Brooklyn. And I went to school full time. I would do my grad school thing. But I would bust my ass to get there, to have this awkward in-person dialogue where honestly it was probably awkward for her too. Like, I don't think she cared for me. I didn't care for her. And we were just kind of stuck together. So yeah, that's not good mentoring. I don't think creates value for anyone either.
Yeah.
So
That's mislabeled mentoring. It's not mentoring.
yeah.
It's a confessional. The thing that I can say is that and I have 2 kids starting out, right? They're
Okay.
finishing college, they're getting ready to start out. And I tell everyone to find as many people as you can that you like, that you trust. They don't have to be in your area, but people know people and they also have experiences and they can say, ooh, it was as simple as my son going on an interview and somebody was like, don't wear that. It's as simple as that. And people think that a mentor has to give some wise aha moment information. And it can be as simple as dress like this for this occasion. It can be, here's the tiny amount of information that you need to solve this one problem that you have. But if you use a whole network of them, you're really going to be looking at a career that's going to skyrocket much faster than somebody who's doing it alone.
Yeah. Very valuable advice. I want you to share with us more on the mentorship project, because I know you've done some amazing work. So tell me a little bit more on what you were part of building.
So that was something that came about because I was talking to mentors. I was an aging specialist looking at why would people want to give back? And everybody's like, well, because they're do-gooders, they're nice. And that really wasn't it. I kept talking to people and they would cry when they would talk about how important it made them feel when their mentee made it, when they did something. It felt like their own achievement. And I realized it was kind of like, when you give somebody a gift and they open it and it's just what they wanted and you feel like $1,000,000. That's how they all feel. So I was like, there's something here. And then Bill Cheswick, he's one of the fathers of the network firewall, said, hey, I am getting ready to retire. I'm going to live on a farm and I don't have access to kids and I want to mentor. And I was like, all right, let's try it out. Let's see if we can get you in schools, Bill. And he was like, okay. So about 7 of us got together and decided to form this little informal group. And in 6 months, it went from like 10 to 60. All these people wanted to mentor. And it's because they all felt disconnected. So you know how we have that whole problem of people feeling disconnected and then lonely and what I was seeing that with high level individuals who had done world changing things and they were feeling lonely and disconnected and irrelevant. So we got them plugged in to work with, and they just had to be a student anywhere in the world. And so by the last year that we were doing it, which was last year, our mentors did about $3.5 million of mentorship hours in 7 countries. And that was pretty amazing because the biggest learning lesson that I had from that is that it doesn't matter how high level or the title of a person, they want to mentor. If they don't, they're the weirdos, not you. So approach everyone. They love it. When you say, hey, can I pick your brain? They're like, me? And it doesn't matter if they are an astronaut and they've been to space. They're like, you want to know something from me? And that was a big learning lesson. I thought that people might have an attitude. Nobody does.
Amazing. So from the mentee side of things, how did that work on their side? How did you do that matching process? Let's start there.
So the mentor chose the mentees.
Okay.
We made it mentor specific. So if a mentee said, hey, I have this area that I'm interested in, we would say to the mentors, anybody want to work with this student? And then that would happen. And we always matched many more than just one. And it was interesting because it was always the oddball matching, like not matching, that we would just make introductions.
Right.
It was the oddest connections that always hit it off the biggest. People who had nothing in common that you would say, those two, I don't see it every single time. They'd be like the people who would have a 4-year mentoring relationship. It was just bizarre. But what I really learned from that is that if you try to hyper focus on somebody that has every quality that you're looking for, usually you're missing out on that core connection that people have. Like people were like, oh yeah, we both like the same kind of movies. Or we both have some kind of internal thing that we like and that nobody talks about in the work life or something like that. But students started their own companies. They patented. They did all kinds of won international awards. They did all kinds of really amazing things. And it's because they had this really tight connection with their mentors.
I love that you had the mentors pick. And I think I'm not a psychologist, right? But I feel like there's psychology around that because every program that I was in when I was a mentee, I was the one doing the choosing. And I remember I had this list of like qualities and background. At the end of the day, like you don't know what you want. You don't know what you need, right? But the mentor has perspective to say like, this looks and feels like a person's situation that I helped to solve for in the past, or like I can relate to that and guide them through it. So that's like one fundamental change that I think is fantastic.
Yes, that is what it takes the edge off. Because you're right. I can see in somebody coming up, it doesn't matter if they're going into business, they're going into psychology, what they're going into. I can say, I see this in you, something that you can't see in yourself. I see this magical unicorn thing about you that you can't see because you're living your life and we never recognize our amazingness. It takes somebody else oftentimes to see it. And we can all see that with somebody starting out. So one of the ways that you can go find people who can choose you is you can do things like, this what used to be when everything was in person, and sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't, but it's the water cooler moments. You talk to people in your workplace. You go to those bring your own lunch meetings. You do all of those things that people say, I'm going to avoid that. It's not necessary. That's where if you're even on a Zoom, you can start messaging people and saying, oh my gosh, you shared this and it really resonated with me. Can I talk with you offline? That's where you can start to find the people that you like. and they then choose you. You can see immediately if there's going to be sparks that fly.
Yeah. What you're saying again is a lot of self work or self action that needs to be taken by the mentee themselves, right? It's hard now because I know obviously everyone works from home now. Great. But when there are opportunities where you can be in person, you have to do it.
People can feel that sort of energy when they're around people in person, and you emit something bigger when you're in person. So when you're
Hmm.
talking to somebody and they can see your legs, you can actually move around and you can talk to somebody and they can see how animated you are. It's hard to be animated when you're on a Zoom screen. So I would say be in person as often as you can. And for all the informal ones that most people say, oh, I don't want to have to do that. I don't have to. I'm not going to go. That's where you're probably going to meet people. And I'll give you an example of how this worked in a corporate setting. LaTanya Kilpatrick was one of the mentors that we had with the Mentor Project. And I was talking to her about, tell me about some mentoring moments that you've had. She's a Colgate Palmolive and in research. And she was trying to solve a huge problem in oral health. So she went to some kind of a conference-like meeting, and she was sitting next to somebody who she had nothing in common with this person work-wise, but they hit it off personally. And the woman worked for a dog food company, no match. But it turned out that LaTanya went back to work and a couple of months later said, you know what? I'm going to contact that person who worked for the dog food company, because I wonder if what they learned through working with animals might be something that would transfer to humans. And it turns out it did, and it solved an enormous problem that they were trying to solve and broke through new barriers in human oral health. And it was that one contact with somebody who she just liked, and that led to something huge at work a few months down the line. And that's how it works when you're starting out in the workplace, is if you talk to somebody and they seem to have nothing to do with anything that you have to do, it probably will come up later that they will be able to help you in some way. You just need to form some kind of, if you like them, keep that relationship going. That's it.
Yeah, that's great advice. And that's one of my mentees now, the advice that I gave her recently, where she's having some difficulty just in navigating the workplace that she's in, is go speak with other departments. People are so focused to say,
Yes.
okay, I'm in marketing, right? So I want to, stay with the marketing team. That's my passion. Little do you know, your passion's going to change 900 times, right?
Mhm.
You've had a bunch of careers in your lifetime. And outside of being a mentor or a mentee, you need people to rely on. You need people to rely on as at different points in your life and set up the network for you personally, professionally, all of that. It's all good for you. It's all healthy.
You bring up such a good point. The lateral mentoring across departments is key. That's huge. And also, when you're doing that, say you're starting out, you are way more valuable than you know. Because in every case, people like I'm Gen X. I don't know Gen Z. But if I'm trying to sell something to Gen Z, I better know that culture, those values. I better understand that. And if you're coming in and you're Gen Z, you are gold to everyone, because they can learn from you what is relevant. What do those terms mean? Like I had to just learn what FR means, for real. Like I didn't know some of these terms and I have to learn them. A person starting out never knows how valuable they are to people. And by just giving little nuggets of your wisdom from being in
Mm-hmm.
your age bracket, you are going to be seen as someone more valuable in your corporate culture or wherever you're going to work, because they're going to start using it. They're going to start doing it. They'll start
Yeah.
saying those things, and that's going to come back to you in a good way.
That's the complete opposite of what I did at the beginning of my career. The complete opposite. I wish I did something like that because I was working in a place where everyone was at least 30 years my senior when I had entered. And I felt like the odd person out because I was. And I tried so hard to relate to everyone, and that absolutely wasn't authentic because I was from a complete different generation. My mindset, my perspective, my values, my interests were completely different, but I felt such a need to mesh
Yeah.
with them. And I feel like I could have done such a better job if I just tried to sit with myself and have that show up
Hmm.
a little bit more. But I also have patience and respect for that person in the past that I was because you don't know that, right? Like that's such a hindsight perspective to have. But I wish I did it the way that you're saying, and I wish that someone told me that.
We all have those things that we look back on and wish, and that's what makes us good mentors is because then we can say that to others.
Yeah.
I'm also saying that from experience. We all, when we start out, want to fit in. Nobody wants to be the one that the light is shining on when you feel like you don't have expertise. But we all do have expertise. So we have to just remind ourselves that, hey, I'm an expert in my generation. I'm an expert in, social media. I'm an expert in something. And that's what you should say. I'm going to welcome that highlight and be authentic with it.
Yeah. I think the takeaway that I'm having from our conversation is no matter where you are, you have to find your thing, right? You have to find out those things, not one solitary item or person or situation that makes you you, so you can be agile in all those change phases of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And ask someone else to tell you. We're terrible at figuring this out for ourselves. Awful. So if you ask somebody, even if it's your close friends, doesn't have to be at work, you don't have to start there, but ask people, what do you see in me that would be something that would be a superpower at work? And that's something that you can then work with.
That's really good advice. So tell me a little bit more about your book that you recently published. Tell me all about it.
It's called The Mentorship Edge, and it defines mentorship and it shows how you can get involved in lateral and hierarchical mentoring. And it gives a lot of examples from mentors. So like Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, how they started, how lateral mentoring can be really the most useful thing, how you can differentiate between networking and sponsoring and coaching and what mentoring isn't, that people say, well, I have a mentor and a coach. No, they're not the same. Those kinds of things. It gives a real, in lay person's language, what it is and isn't. So a lot of people find it very helpful in terms of understanding it for themselves and how they can get plugged in with lots of mentors.
Amazing. And I think, as you mentioned, relevant for so many people, whether you're the person on both sides of it. So that's great. I'm going to include everything within the show notes as well on the link. I imagine it's on Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's everywhere you get books.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Amazing. Good. So we're going to jump into something fun for a second. So we are going to do some rapid fire questions. So this is gut feel, whatever comes out. Okay. First job you've ever had.
Well, I worked at a candle shop in a mall.
The Roosevelt Field Mall?
No, it was in Westchester. The Jefferson Valley Mall.
Okay. We're from the same area. So there's probably a list of 10 it could have been.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Okay. Question number 2. Mentor someone or be mentored. Which one teaches you more?
I'd say the exact same. We're always mentoring. You don't even know when you're mentoring. It's helping a friend in school with another subject, or you are being mentored. It's the same. You're getting something and you're giving something, and we need both.
Most surprising place that you found a mentor?
One of my most surprising mentors, I would say, is a kid who mentored me. He's 21. He's a social media mogul, and he mentored me to get onto TikTok. Now, I was such a dud that my first comment was unk, which if anyone knows what that means, old person. It was hilarious. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure he learned so much from you too. I probably need a 21-year-old social media mentor as well because it's like a whole other world. Okay. One word for what most people get wrong about asking for help.
They ask for help. So let me see how I put that into one word. Mentor me. They say that.
Mentor me. And what would you say instead?
Can I pick your brain?
That's a good one. Okay, this one I'm just going to make up as I go after what we talked about. What did you think that you were going to be when you graduated university?
I'm going to give you a list of the things that I thought I'd be. When I was 8, I thought I would be a nun. Then after university, so I switched my major 4 times. So at one point I was going to be a business administration person, which I think would be like a secretary. And then I was going to be go into accounting and then psychology. So once I picked that, I stuck with it.
Oh my goodness. That's so funny. And then you said the candle shop. So it really all started at the candle shop in the mall.
Probably. They were the best mentors. My bosses there were the nicest people. And I was a terrible employee, and they were so nice about it. I didn't know how to work. I
Yeah,
thought you socialized the whole time.
you exactly. You got to learn somewhere, right? Oh my goodness. Okay, so I end every podcast asking everyone the same question. So nobody told me this, but when I learned it, it changed everything for me.
No one told me that you have to care about others in the workplace, but that changed everything for me because when I saw things from the other person's perspective, I was able to navigate more easily.
Ugh, yes, yes to all of that. Yes, yes, yes to all of that. Perfect. Putting that in someone else's point of view, I think changes your perspective on everything. And it took me a while to learn that for sure.
Me
So,
too.
but I'm happy that I did. So good. So, Deb, where can we find you? How do we engage with you? And tell us everything to follow up.
You can find me on all social media thanks to my 21-year-old mentor. And I write for Psychology Today, The Right Side of 40. You can find me on Substack, The Right Side of 40. And I have a website, deborahheiser.com.
Okay.
And
Okay.
LinkedIn.
Perfect.
I'm everywhere.
Perfect. And we can come to you if we're not 42, right?
I talk to everybody. I
Perfect.
really do. And I
Perfect.
work with everybody. But just, I love to answer questions. Like, just, ask a question.
Good. Well, I need to see when I'm back in New York. We'll definitely plan for getting a coffee or something in
Absolutely.
person. That'll be fantastic. But thank you so much for your time, for your perspective. You have a lifetime of experience and you mentored me on this call in its own way. So thank you so much.
And just one thing to tell you, you are
Yeah.
a podcaster is a modern form of mentoring. So everyone who's listening is your mentee.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, a mentor for the masses.
That's right.
The masses, my following here, but I do need to get on TikTok like you. I do need to follow you on TikTok and then I'll learn from the best.
Just don't DM me.
Okay, I won't. We learned from that mistake. So perfect. Thanks so much, Deb, and we will catch up soon.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.